どうだった昨日新学先生のメッセージは。新学先生のメッセージはどうだった昨日の。
あんまり変わらないよ。いつもの通りで。
喋った。
喋ったよ。
$15,000 for this year, if you wanted to do that. But tell me how you feel about that. Are you wanting to take a little bit of risk and try to grow this, or are you really wanting to stay more in bank type products that are guaranteed?
Well, we don't necessarily want to stick with the bank thing, but we don't want to be, too invested in that right now because the banks are a little bit challenging or questionable, I guess, is what I mean.
Yeah, I wouldn't be concerned about that. I mean, unless you're in one of the, this was really isolated to some, we could see more of it for sure, but it was isolated to some very specific regional banks that had mismanaged their portfolios, because when they take in deposits, they lend it out, and then they buy U.S. government treasuries. They had a lot of long-term treasuries. They had, in particular, in the case of Silicon Valley, depositors that were needing their cash because they're in a high-growth industry, and in this environment they were draining their deposits, and that required them to sell these assets at a loss, which resulted in a run on the banks, on those banks. I think it's limited, and the government has taken extraordinary measures to backstop it, and even as of late, Secretary Yellen plus Fed Secretary also is out, Chairman Powell, and saying that we may go even beyond 250. So if you're up to 250,000 or less, I don't think you have to be concerned. I think the question is, what's the best place to balance getting out of debt so you reduce your lifestyle as much as possible? I think the key there is to do that by the time you stop working, because that's going to get your biggest expense off the table. And if you had a conviction to do that right away, you certainly could go in and wipe it out. You'd still have, probably 12 months worth of expenses in the bank. But I think the question beyond that is, if Social Security is not enough, what can we do to grow some wealth over the next decade? I'm just using that as a ballpark for how long you're going to continue to work for pay. You could go beyond that. But what can we do to grow some wealth so you have an asset there that you can convert to an income stream, to use for the rest of your life? And I think that's really the key. And so if it were me, I'd probably, just continue paying on this mortgage and, try to sock some money away in an IRA, and then invest it in a fairly conservative way, but where you have a mix of stocks and bonds and give you the potential to grow it over the next 8 to 10 years. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it kind of does.
Yeah. Okay. But give me your thoughts, you and your wife. I'm delighted she's listening as well, just on, if that doesn't line up, because at the end of the day, you all are the stewards, and, we want to align this with your values and priorities, and, what God's doing in your life as a couple and in your family. And I think, if you're saying, listen, Rob, we just feel like the Lord's giving us a conviction to get out of debt, then I would say you do that and don't look back. But if not, and you want to just continue paying on this mortgage, and I assume it's at a low interest rate, and you want to take this 80 and set aside the 6 to 12 months worth of emergency funds and keep that in savings, and then take the rest and start socking it away over the next decade into an IRA and get it invested where it can grow, then that would make some sense to me, unless that's misaligned with where you all feel like God is leading you. And if that's the case, then I fully support that. So give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and we're certainly praying about it. And I understand we need to invest to try to build that up. I just thought, the interest, our mortgage is 5.25%.
Oh, okay, so it's a little higher.
Yeah, so that was good back in 2006.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
We've never refinanced and so on like that. So
okay. Yeah, so that may change things just slightly for me, because I was thinking you had one of those 2.75% or 3% rates. With over 5, yeah, I like this idea of wiping that out, and then shoring up that savings of 6 months. And so that would be 47, and then if you put another 25 into emergency savings, that's 72, and then you could take the remaining 8, maybe that's what you use to start the IRA, and then you guys have some peace of mind to know, hey, we're completely debt-free, we don't owe anybody anything, and now we're going to focus on taking 100% of our surplus every month now that this mortgage is paid off, and put it away toward long-term savings. You know, I think you could absolutely make a case for that at age 70.
Yeah, I think that sounds really good. That gives me a little more sense of relief because we were just heard your money minute this morning. You just said save the interest, and that would save us quite a bit of interest, you know.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, well, I think given that interest rate, I can get on board with that. Once you guys take another week or so and just pray about it separately and together and see where the Lord leads you. But we appreciate you being on the program today. Thanks for calling today, Kim, you and your wife. God bless you guys. Thanks for your service to the Lord over a long, long time. If we can help further, let us know. Quickly to Chicago. Joe, you'll be our last caller. Unfortunately, I was long-winded there. How can I help you?
Thank you, Rob, for taking the call. My wife and I were both 57 years old, recently financed. We have 28 years left on our mortgage. It's on a 3-flat building. We occupy one of the units, and the rents that come in on the building covers the mortgage with escrow, and actually gets about $150 of surplus. The rents are about 15 to 20% under market value. We have wonderful neighbors, and we want to keep them comfortable as well. With the interest rate, with the original inflation being what it is, and I'm keeping that 3% locked in for the next 20 years, should I just let the rents ride and pay the house off by itself, or should I make attempts to pay off the building earlier?
And what would you use to pay it down quicker?
Our income, I'm 57 years old, I'm a first responder, I'll be retiring this year. Well, my wife will continue to work, I'll be drawing about $5,000 on a monthly pension.
Okay, I got it. And what are you doing with that surplus now if you're not paying toward the mortgage? Are you putting it away in investments?
We just finished paying our last daughter in graduate school, so she just wrapped up graduate school, so now we have extra $150, and the rent pay off the mortgage completely, and we're kind of wondering if we can pay the building off sooner, or we can let it ride.
Yeah, I think I'd let it ride, especially since you're 15 to 20% under market. I don't think those renters are going anywhere, and now you're going to have some surplus now that your daughter's through grad school. I just sock that money away and let the buildings pay for themselves. I appreciate your call. Sorry I didn't have much time, Joe. Folks, thanks for being along with us today. I still love coming alongside you to encourage you and answer your questions and talk about how we can handle money God's way. On behalf of my team, Robert Sutherland, Pat Montague, and Devin Patrick, I'm Rob West. So glad you were here for Faith and Finance on American Family Radio. Have a great rest of your day, and come back and join us tomorrow, will you? See you then. Bye-bye.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
90.5 KTXG.
コーヒーは味はどうかね。コーヒー。
Show me some Christian
ち
music
ょっと薄いけど、うまいよ。
Here's what I found under Christian music streaming apps.
The AFR app? Isn't that talk shows only?
It was. Now the new music streaming option plays music 24/7.
Oh, wow. God is good.
All the time.
Download the AFR app today at afr.net. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association. American Family News, almost a kid.
disturbing. And by the way, for the president's staffers, obviously this is the least transparent, most protected president we have ever seen. And it's a movie we've seen time and time again. The president's staffers yelling at reporters, all in an effort to ensure the voters of this country don't get answers to simple questions. And this is why, exactly what you're seeing here, this is why nearly 8 in 10 Americans say Joe Biden should not run for re-election, because he's too old. It's not the number around age that's disconcerting. It's his inability to answer questions outside of a teleprompter, and because his advisors and his handlers treat him like a 6-year-old.
Following the botched U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, President Biden said he trusted the Taliban to keep al-Qaeda out of Afghanistan. Former Marine General Frank McKenzie had this to say yesterday.
The Taliban would act only in the light of their very best interests, and while they might make some temporary accommodation, as they did when they withdrew from Afghanistan, they weren't to be trusted, and they actually have a long-term familial and customary relationship with al-Qaeda, and it's very difficult to think that would change. I think that relationship is far stronger than any potential relationship they would choose with the United States.
Virginia Congresswoman Jen Kiggins says the terrorists know Joe Biden is weak.
I can't believe that we are actually entertaining the idea of trusting terrorists. You know, our country, when we are weak, we are inviting terrorism. When we've seen the president over and over again just really be a weak leader for our country. Look at what he's doing, even with the G20 summit, the press conference. It's embarrassing every single day on the national stage. And when our country is weak, that's when we fight terrorism against us.
A school board president continues to speak out against a lawsuit from her state's attorney general.
As we have reported on AFN, Chino Valley Unified School District wants parents to be notified if their child is changing gender identity and pronouns at school. Attorney General Rob Bonta says that's a violation of the students' rights. But school board president Sonia Shaw told AFN he has not cited any law they were breaking.
We're not giving up. We're going to take this all the way.
Last week, a state judge temporarily blocked the policy while a lawsuit from Bonta plays out in court.
My thing to parents is wake up. They have told you they're going to pick and choose what you can and cannot be involved in your own child's life. So listen to them, be watching them. They're clearly stating parents have no rights and they want to take over the upbringing of your children.
Shaw adds that student privacy laws and guidelines were put in place to protect children from government and third parties.
It was never intended to keep privacy from the parents.
Chino Valley is not the only school district in California with such a policy. At least 4 other districts want teachers to notify parents if their children identify as transgender. Chris Woodward,
American Family News, almost to you.
Are you able to stand steadfast in this post-Christian world? Join Frank Turek, Gary Habermas, Hugh Ross, Richard Howe, and more than 40 other speakers for Southern Evangelical Seminary's 29th Annual Steadfast National Conference. No matter where you are on your faith journey, you will leave this event better equipped to penetrate the culture with the gospel and defend the truthfulness of Christianity. It all happens October 13th and 14th at First Baptist Church in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Register now at ses.edu/national conference.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. On this Monday, September the 11th, 2023, Tim Wildman here with Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
And Fred Jackson.
Good morning, Tim.
All right, so this is September the 11th. We all know what happened in 2021, right? You remember back then?
2001.
Excuse me, did I say 2021?
Yes,
I meant 2001. That's being commemorated.
It is 22 years ago. And people are remembering. You know, one of the things that they've done through the years as a memorial, they have people, this is in New York City, get up and name the names. It was close to 3,000 people died. And even though we're at the 22nd anniversary of this, I was watching the coverage of it this morning. And they went through the live coverage that day as the events unfolded. The first airplane flying into the first tower, and etc., etc. It still left me with a shock. Just like it was, because we were in the newsroom that morning. Everybody has a memory of where they were when it happened. And they started to talk about a plane headed towards the towers. And at first it looked like it may have been Cessna that flew in because it was a long distance. But then you began to realize, and everybody who was covering this began to realize, no, this isn't an accident.
Right.
This is an attack. And I wanted to play you a little bit of the radio traffic that morning, the going back and forth, the 911 calls, and I'm not sure if it's in this montage, but the air traffic control trying to reach these airplanes which have been taken over by these Islamic terrorists. So a little bit of down memory lane with this, cut number 1.
American 11, you tried to call.
The cockpit is not answering their phone. Our number 1 is the staff, and our 5 is the staff.
I am going to go from Washington. I am in a situation where the is on a possible hijack.
What's going on? That aircraft is erratic again. Oh, very erratic. Eddie, you there? The plane is what? It's 11:37.
Like what?
Like the World Trade talking to.
Yeah, that's just a little bit of the radio traffic that's going on that morning. And is it control tower traffic? Some of this is 911 calls. People are calling in. It's unfolding.
持ってく。
And then, of course, as everybody
コーヒー
was
カップ持ってく。
shocked
いや、いいよ。
plane that
いい。
the first tower, then the second one goes
でもない。
and then we have the Pentagon. And
水持ってきた。
happens in Pennsylvania. So it is a day I hope we never do forget. But the memorials this morning, I think some of them, reading the names of those who died in New York, were the children of those moms, those dads who passed away. So it's always very moving.
Yeah, because 22 years later, you're talking about another generation having grown up, and little children are now, in their 20s.
Yes.
And some older. It's like a Pearl Harbor event. It defines the nation. It defines an entire generation, and then others look back at it, and it is distinctly different in some ways, though, from Pearl Harbor, which was the prelude to our involvement in a world war. And once that was over and the Empire of Japan, I'm talking about in the Pacific, was defeated, then you kind of go back to normal and you go on with your lives. But this 9/11 having been a terrorist attack, and after the last 22 years, we understand that threat isn't over. This is not like a war is completed and now we're friends with Japan. And no, this is still out there, still capable of raising its head, and still capable of hurting people both here and abroad.
One of the other parts of this story is that President Joe Biden will not be at any of these ceremony sites today. He is returning from a meeting in Vietnam. He is going instead to a military base in Alaska. So he won't be in New York. He won't be at the Pentagon. He won't be in Pennsylvania. And so there are some people upset about that, but then there are other people who are saying, no, I'm okay. They're not fans of Joe Biden. This is Lieutenant Colonel Donald Arias in an interview with Fox talking about this, cut number 2.
That's no surprise to me that he's not coming to Ground Zero or any of the 9/11 sites. And quite frankly, I prefer he stay away anyway. He will be spared one of his stories of how he can relate, like he did with the people in Lahaina, how he can relate because of a kitchen fire that singed his cat's whiskers. We can do without that. He sent that human laugh track we known as the vice president to Ground Zero to represent him. And again, I prefer she stay away as well. This is a day for family members, first responders, and true-hearted, stout-hearted patriots who want to honor those we lost in that way.
A little bit bitter.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, with all due respect, I would disagree. Who was this?
This is Lieutenant Colonel Donald Arias.
Listen, I understand the anger and, like you said, the bitterness, because the president has not shown himself to be a friend of the military. I think the president, whoever's the president and the vice president, need to point to, by their presence, the memory of what happened on that day. I fault the president or whoever's running his schedule for not having scheduled the trip to Vietnam early enough so that he could, and the vice president could be back at ground zero sites. To me, that's appropriate. Whoever the president is, it's a time to set aside our partisan differences. But it's a free country. He certainly has the right to not want the president there. I understand that as well.
I got nothing to add, fellas.
Okay.
That's unusual, isn't it? Huh?
Well, this is a day of those kinds of memories. Very sad. To this day, I mentioned this before, that there's a movie about Flight 93.
Yes.
To this day, I can't watch it. I've tried to start watching it, but I can't, because I know they're actors. I don't want to see those people die.
Yeah.
And
bravery.
It was incredible bravery.
Yeah.
Being represented in that
Let's
movie.
Roll?
Yes.
Todd, what's the gentleman's name?
Was it Todd Beamer?
Beamer?
Yeah, I think that was Beamer.
Yeah, his wife wrote a
That
book
was
afterwards.
that was what the movie and the book was based on.
Yeah.
Were based on.
Yeah.
But our generation will never forget that day.
And to bring it home a little bit, Tim, we had a special that day. American Family Radio went on the air, and I think it's the longest special we've ever had, and rightly so. I think we were on the air for at least 12 hours, live coverage of all of this, because we understood. Now, our country was under attack in real time. And we talked to people like the late Adrian Rogers and others because the country needed some comfort as to what was going on.
Well, and we were attacked by Islamic jihadists.
Yes.
So it wasn't really a quote country that was attacking us, or an army that was attacking us. It was an ideology acted out by these men who ironically trained many of them. I say many of them, several of them. They're trained in America to learn how to fly. Then they use that to hijack the planes, and then to now, thank God that hasn't happened since. We haven't had a hijacking. I think people learned, to be more aware on airplanes, and so that's good that hasn't happened again. But yeah, very tragic, sad day in our country's history. Probably top 10 in terms of the impact on our country and all the citizenry. Days. I'm talking about single days.
You talk about our country changing, flying changed.
Yes.
Security changed. The Patriot Act has changed our country. I think it changed the way our intelligence branches even look at and behave towards American citizens, in terms of always trying to and look, we do need to give credit to the FBI and other agencies, because apparently they have done a pretty good job at intercepting, maybe we'll never know, intercepting some of these attempts to replicate those kinds of terrorist attacks. So I don't want this to be overly critical, but the way our country behaves changed in the days following 9/11 as well.
I had to do an air trip back several weeks ago to Canada, and every time you get on an airplane now, you're reminded of procedures change. They changed the doors on the cockpit so that you cannot get in. It's kind of locked from the inside. Well, the pilot, at one point in the trip, the pilot had to use the washroom. And so this is standard procedure now. The pilot comes out and a flight attendant goes into the cockpit with the co-pilot. They lock the door, but they put the food cart across the entrance so nobody can come forward. The food cart is put in the way while the pilot is using the washroom. Pilot comes out, goes back, knocks on the door. They open the door from the inside, goes back into the cockpit. Flight attendant comes out, and then they remove the food cart over to the side again. And it was just, we have to do these things.
Yeah.
These procedures that are in place, and it was just a reminder once again. We live in a different world now.
Well, the three of us remember when before 9/11, you could wait at the gate.
Yes.
You
could say goodbye to a loved one.
You could say goodbye to a loved one or greet someone as they came off the plane.
Yeah.
Now that all changed.
Yeah.
Because
I remember that.
Yeah.
That would have been into the 70s, even.
Yeah. Well, up until 9/11, we used to be able to do that. My wife and kids would see me off at the gate.
Mm-hmm.
I'd get on. I'd board the plane. They'd leave, or you'd wait for someone to deplane, and you could be all the way up to the gate without a ticket.
Yeah,
without having been screened. And
if you're watching a movie today and you see the way it used to be, it's like, gee, that was nice. Or that's a real old movie.
Yes.
Well, I remember, this would have been early 70s. I remember my dad going on to get on a plane here in Tupelo, and it was a little twin-engine plane. It would take you to Memphis, where you could connect to, with real jets. Right. But I mean, I remember he would just walk through a metal detector. That would be it. Then onto the plane.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember even if there was a time where there wasn't even a metal detector.
Oh yeah, I remember.
You just walk onto you just hand them your ticket and you walk onto the plane.
Yeah.
And then there began to be a few hijackings, but one of them was like, wasn't one of the main themes "Take Me to Cuba"?
Yeah. Hijack and go to
Cuba
country.
Yeah, but it wasn't to hijack the plane to do a suicide mission.
Right. That was a whole new ball of wax.
Yeah. So you guys remember times when you didn't even have metal detectors?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just like going in a movie.
Yeah.
Theater. Just hand them your ticket to get on the plane. You get on the plane.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. All right, Fred. Next story.
Well, as I think I mentioned in our prep meeting this morning for the program, what happened in Morocco this weekend has to be the most underreported earthquake. I checked just before coming into the studio. The death toll from the earthquake in Morocco is now over 2,100 individuals. It is the first earthquake in that North African country in 120 years. Seeing the pictures, it happened. What they're locating it. If you look at